Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday, and welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously with me, your host, Dana. I know you're probably wondering what was that music, and guys, yeah, we have new music, and that's great, and I'm loving the new music. I hope you are too. And happy holidays. This is a Labor Day long weekend. Happy Monday. I can't believe it's September. That's pretty wild. August went by pretty fast, but I think it's funny that we finally all have the same holiday. Like, those who are my frequent listeners know I am in Toronto. Most of my listeners are in the US, and we often don't share the same holidays for some reason. Like, we have different Thanksgivings, and like in August in Toronto, we have like a holiday just called like Civic Holiday. It's just like a random day in August that we get off. So we all have this day. We all have Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. Happy long weekend. But regardless, I had to get you guys an episode. How could I not? And I apologize for not having a new episode last week. I was just going through a ton of stuff. My frequent listeners know that I've been just dealing with a lot of stuff with my dog, and I've been dealing with more stuff with my dog. And not just that, I was dealing with just like, honestly, like one thing after another, and I just needed a moment to myself, quite honestly. But I had a throwback episode with Terry Maloney from April 1st, 2024. And despite the fact that the interview had a lot of static in it from Terry's headphones, I still thought it was a really good interview, and I wanted to refresh you guys on that. But I am back today. It's Monday. Happy Monday. And I have some really exciting news to share with you guys. So this has been a long time coming, but I'm very excited to finally share that I Take Bravo Very Seriously is a member of the Hurrdat Entertainment Network. This is such a goal for me. This is so exciting. Like, guys, the Hurrdat Entertainment Network hosts some of the most amazing podcasts, like with Teresa Giudice. They have Angelina Pavarnik, Chris Hansen, Chris Kirkpatrick, Bravo by Gays, Morgan's Pop Talks, Melissa Rivers. Vicky Gunvalson has a podcast on there with Christian Grey Snow called My Friend, My Soulmate, My Podcast. Like, guys, this is going to be so amazing for me. I am so thankful and blessed that Hurrdat Media has agreed to allow I Take Bravo Very Seriously to be amongst one of the greats, right? So I'm just so excited for the resources and the perks and all the amazing things that are going to come with being part of this amazing network. Guys, there's Bravo Lebs on the network like Teresa Giudice and Vicky Gunvalson. I am probably going to have access to more Bravo Lebs just being a part of this amazing network and their reach when it comes to the Bravo Lebs. So I'm so excited to be a part of this network. I literally thought, honestly, they were going to drop me at one point because I'm cursed. Like, this is just like a general thing that people who know me know. Just I'm generally cursed. I'll get into it more later, but like that literally means everything I deal with, there's always like a problem. So when they were trying to migrate my show over, there was all of these issues. It took weeks. Like, they were sending me codes from like Spotify and Apple, and then I wasn't getting the codes. And when I was getting the codes weren't translating over. And honestly, I thought it was going to come to a point where they were going to be like, this girl in this show is not worth it. This is too much of a hassle. But thank you so much to everyone who works at Hurrdat, who worked so tirelessly with me, and we got there. We got the show migrated over, and it's just been so beautiful so far. I love everyone that works there. They have been so helpful and so amazing. And so some of the amazing perks as of, just so far, you guys, I'm going to be having merch. So you can already go to Hurrdat Media's website, so hurrdatmedia.com. You can check out merch for any of their shows, but check out the ones for mine. So there's I Take Bravo Very Seriously mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, beanies, dad caps. I've pretty much bought everything. And what was so funny was that when I went to buy it on Hurrdat Media's website, they only shipped to the US. I'm like, oh, of course. So I had to ship it to one of my friend's places in the US, and she's going to send it to me in Canada. But like, guys, I love merch. Merch is one of my favorite things. As you can tell, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my Born Fucking Cool sweatshirt. This is part of the Team Ariana merch. I have Jackson Brittany merch. I have Something About Her merch. Basically, all I wear is merch because I work from home. So it's all sweatshirts and t-shirts and everything. So I was so excited to be getting merch for my show. And I personally think it's generic enough that you can wear it everywhere. Like, things that say I Take Bravo Very Seriously don't necessarily relate to a podcast. I mean, personally, I would just wear that anywhere. That is just me, but that is some of the exciting news that comes along with being part of Hurrdat. And another thing I wanted to let you guys know is about Hurrdat's YouTube channel. So currently, I have my own YouTube channel, and we're not really sure what we're going to be doing with it yet. But for now, you can still watch all of these podcast episodes on YouTube, but watch them on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube. So just go to @Hurrdat Entertainment, and you'll be able to watch the full-length YouTube videos there. And then me and Hurrdat are going to figure out later in terms of what to do with my old YouTube and my old episodes. Um, and then I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on my dog Judy, just for the few of you who have been like checking in on me, and thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Those of you who are frequent listeners know that she has a collapsed trachea. Basically, I got some information that made me feel like it was going to be a lot worse, and that's why I was just like really going through it last week. But we did end up seeing an internal medicine specialist, and so she has pneumonia, which is good news in terms of the fact that she's now being properly treated and her tracheal collapse is not as severe as I thought it was. So, to be honest with you guys, there was like a period of time last week where I was just like, am I not going to have like as much time with her as I thought I was going to? And that really killed me because she's only 2. But after speaking to this internal medicine specialist, who was a complete misogynist, by the way, and like just such a nightmare to deal with, regardless, he was very smart. He knew what he was talking about, and I feel a lot better about where Judy is. So that is some good news. Another thing I wanted to tell you guys is that I want to stop calling you guys. I've been trying to think of a fun name to call my people, right? My listeners, especially now that we're with Hurrdat and especially now that we've got the merch. What do I want to call my people? And so I put some thought into it and I decided y'all are my Bravo bosses because you guys are smart, you guys are researchers, you guys listen to this show because you want the dirty deets, you want the lowdown details, and you guys are really, really smart. You're bosses, you're Bravo bosses, you're my BBs. And that's what I'm going to call my ladies from now on. My Bravo BBs, my Bravo babes, my Bravo bosses, okay? BBs. Do you love it? I hope you guys love it. All right. So for my new listeners, which I am expecting there to be some, because now that I've moved over to Hurrdat, I hope that I'm going to be getting a lot of new listeners and a whole new audience. So I just want to give the new people a little bit about me and a little bit about what to expect from the show. So allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Dana. I am from Toronto. I love Bravo. I love everything Bravo. I love all reality TV. I watch it all, listen to it all in terms of the podcast as well. So I'm here to bring you all the Bravo shows, all the dirty deets, all the podcast tea, all of the news, all of the recaps, all of the everything. And in terms of who I am just a girl who loves Bravo, who wants to share her general knowledge with the world, and I want to give my opinions. I'm also a person who is pretty good at doing research, pretty good at doing investigations, and I will get you the news that nobody else will get you. All right? So that is what you will get here at I Take Bravo Very Seriously, my Bravo bosses, my BBs. I think we should probably get into the episode, but before we do that, one more thing I wanted to mention to you guys is the Patreon. Guys, join the Patreon. You can even join for free for a little and then cancel. So just join and see what it's all about. Let me tell you what it's about though. You guys are going to get 4 extra mini episodes a month, okay? Then you're going to also get ad-free episodes, which I know up to date there have been no ads because I haven't been part of a network. But now that I am part of a network, these episodes are going to have ads, okay? So if you head over to the Patreon, you will get these episodes ad-free. You will get them early. So these episodes normally come out on Mondays, but you'll be getting them as soon as I finish recording, okay? So probably on Sundays. You will be getting Q&As with me for all the reality TBT. You will be getting exclusive bonus content, okay? So join the Patreon. It's patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously. It's so much fun. Right now I'm doing extra episodes of 90 Day Fiancé the other way. I feel like you guys don't wanna watch it. I feel like you guys don't wanna hear that. You guys tell me what you wanna listen to, okay? Do you guys want me to do Teen Mom? Do you guys want me to do old episodes of Vanderpump Rules from the beginning? I can do that. Whatever you guys want me to do episodes about on the Patreon, I will do that for you. So reach out to me in the DMs at the Bravo Investigator and let me know what you want. All right, guys? All right, so I think we should get into the episode, and let's start with Artem and Nikki. So I'm sure you guys heard this story last week. So Artem Chigvintsev, which I think is how you pronounce his name, is from Dancing with the Stars. He's been on the show for many, many years, and he is married to Nikki Bella, who is from the WWE. So I have actually known Nikki Bella for quite some time because I used to watch her show Total Bellas. So while this isn't in the Bravo sphere, it's definitely still in the reality TV sphere, and I can still connect it to Bravo, and I'll show you how. Nikki and Brie Bella were on this show, Total Bellas, which I found years ago. It was an e-show, just like another reality TV show, which showcased their lives, their relationships, and their businesses and whatever they were doing within the WWE. And at the time that the show started, Nikki Bella was dating John Cena. And then they famously broke up on the show twice, ended their engagement. And I remember it being such an interesting watch, very fascinating because John Cena didn't want children, Nikki Bella did. And there was points where she was trying to break up with him or trying to explain to him that, she really wanted children and she would even go to therapy to try to get rid of this want that she had to have children. And I remember him having this point in the show saying to her, I don't want you to do that. That's absolutely ridiculous. You shouldn't have to go to therapy to try to convince yourself to not want something that you want. And I think that that was a real pivotal moment for them to realize, like, they just want two different things. For her to have to go to therapy to try to convince herself she doesn't want children because he doesn't want children, I mean, my God, right? They were not a match made in heaven. So not long later, after, they ended their relationship, she started dating Artem, and she knew Artem from Dancing with the Stars. They were partners at the time, obviously not dating. She was with John Cena at the time, but, then they started dating, and it was a slow burn for her. It took her some time. She ended up getting pregnant with their baby Mateo, and now they have been married for 2 years. So Artem and her, like, they literally just had their 2-year anniversary a few days ago, and she was posting like all these loving messages about him, all this stuff on Instagram. But wait, I just want to connect it back to Bravo for a second. So, Dancing with the Stars, I mean, is obviously so connected to Bravo, with so many different Bravo loves having been on Dancing with the Stars, like Ariana Madix, Lisa Vanderpump, Sheena wanting to be on Dancing with the Stars, right? So much Dancing with the Stars connects to Bravo. And then Katie Maloney's brother, I forget which one, I think it's Rocky. He actually used to work for Nikki and Brie Bella. So if you go back and you watch old episodes of Total Bellas, he's like their road manager and he's in the car with them, helping them out. So it's so crazy that Terry Maloney basically has two kids on TV. And if you go back and listen to the episode I did with Terry Maloney, which I posted again from last week, you'll hear me talking to her about her son being on Total Bellas. So that's the connection. But anyways, so they just had their 2-year anniversary, and then last week on Thursday, Artem was arrested Thursday morning and was being held on $25,000 bail, according to booking records. He was later released, and records at the Napa County Jail show that he was booked on California Penal Code 273.5. Subsection A, which forbids the willful infliction of corporal injury resulting in a traumatic condition on a current or former spouse, cohabitant, or fellow parent. So initially, when this arrest came out, no one knew necessarily whether it was about Nikki. They knew he was arrested for something bad, but they weren't sure whether it was related to violence against his wife. But then when you look at what the actual arrest charge was, like the actual penal code, it's very clear that is domestic violence, right? So then TMZ came out with an article like later that day that said Artem Chigvintsev says in 911 call that wife Nikki Garcia threw shoes at him. And just to be clear, not that long ago, Nikki and Brie decided to change their names back to their um, birth last names, which is Garcia. So that's why now she's going by Nikki Garcia. So I'm just going to read you guys the TMZ article about this because they ended up getting the 911 call. So the radio dispatch from the Artem Chigvintsev domestic violence case reveals he did indeed call 911 to request medical assistance, but then added his wife Nikki Garcia had thrown shoes at him. TMC has obtained the dispatch call in which the dispatcher says, initially came in as requesting medical, but now he is stating he got into an argument with his wife and his wife threw shoes at reporting party. The dispatcher notes the dispatcher notes there is a child on scene, medical en route, adding there is active 415 disturbing the peace in the background responsible. As TMZ reported, Artem then called the paramedics off, which was reflected by the dispatcher who says reporting party is stating no medical is now needed. The dispatcher notes a child was at the home and the wife has the child. At the time of the call, the dispatcher noted Artem and Nikki were physically separated from each other. Cops still showed up an hour later and saw visible injuries on the alleged victim and arrested Artem for felony corporal injury to a spouse. As we reported, Nikki's rep said her client was asking for privacy for her family. So then on Saturday, TMZ reported that Nikki Bella Garcia, whatever, was seen without her wedding ring and was boarding a private plane. So I actually saw the pictures and she had this huge grin on her face, which is sort of strange. But TMZ has also reported that a source close to the couple said that Artem's domestic violence arrest was not surprising and that their relationship has always been volatile. He has also talked on her podcast about being depressed after being cut from Dancing with the Stars. So I don't know. I personally was very shocked to hear this. I mean, initially, when they didn't say who the violence was against, I was like, no, this can't be. This can't be against Nikki. He's always seemed like this very, calm, collected sort of individual. And while their relationship has always had sort of strain, I thought that was more so in terms of her just getting there in terms of her feelings. That being said, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, obviously, but this was just so incredibly crazy to hear. Now, remember, guys, even though we heard in this call that Nikki threw shoes at Artem, we don't know what else happened because it's sort of a weird gaslighty thing for him to call the police, say that she's hurt him, but then call back and say, oh, never mind, nobody's hurt. It sort of seems like he was trying to put her in her place or try to, I don't know, like manipulate the situation, which backfired because then the police showed up and arrested him. But remember, they said that the alleged victim, and we're assuming here that by alleged victim, they mean Nikki. Again, but all I can say is alleged because we still don't exactly know. But they said that the alleged victim had marks on their person, right? So even if Nikki did throw shoes at him, there is something to the effect to show that there was something on Nikki as well. Now, Nikki wasn't wearing her wedding ring, but had a big grin on her face. So I don't really know what that means. And I don't know what that means going forward. And I don't know if they're even going to end up giving us more information on this. This could be the kind of thing where they just want to keep it within the family and keep it private. But I am very curious what's going to happen here, right? Like, I know Nikki Bella is no Rihanna, but this sort of reminded me of the Rihanna situation with Chris Brown because I remember her saying back at the time that how she would have handled it would have been different if there wasn't so much public scrutiny. She said she would have stayed with him if it wasn't for the public, because obviously the public was pushing for her to break up with him. And so I wonder if this situation will be similar, where Nikki will feel a pressure from the public one way or the other, either to stay with him or not to stay with him, and whether she'll feel like she has to do with whatever the public would want her to do. Just something to think about. Obviously, she has a son to think about, and my prayers are with her and her son during this time. All right, so let's get into our next topic, which is Vander Valley rumors, which is basically all the stuff that's going on in the Vanderpump world and the Valley world, and let's get an update on all of that. So, first, we heard last week that there might be a final season of Vanderpump Rules with the current cast members, but that they were going to recast the show with current employees of Lisa Vanderpump's restaurants, like Tom Tom and Sir. So, I heard this originally from Dumois, and I'm going to read the post from her. So, it says, a fresh start. So it looks like the future of Vanderpump Rules might be as messy as Scandival, at least for now. After the recent drama and allegations that have rocked the show, fans are wondering if Bravo will renew the series for another season. After a video surfaced on TMZ of DJ James Kennedy sharing he hadn't heard back from producers, fans began to question whether or not their OG cast members will be making a return. This week, an exclusive source shared some intel on what's possibly in store for the Bravo cult classic. I heard that everyone at TomTom and Sir have had multiple interviews with producers and Bravo because they're recasting the entire show with people who actually work at Lisa's restaurants. Only time will tell who will continue to serve up the juicy drama that fans on this iconic Bravo mainstay love. So at first, when I heard that, I thought, you know what, that kind of makes sense because we want to see our current cast members finish out their stories. But what made us really love this show was the very organic nature of the connections between the cast members because they really all worked together. They were really all sleeping together. They were really all poor. And that, you know, method and that framework for a show really, really worked. And that's why I think Southern Hospitality is such a good show. It sort of has that same framework, and it's something I think you guys shouldn't sleep on. Definitely give a watch on Southern Hospitality. It's a really, really good one, but it's the most synonymous that we've seen so far. And I really think that if Vanderpump Rules could go back to its core and what it was originally about, it could survive. But then at the same time, we get kind of weird when we have cast members that we don't really know, right? Like we get really connected to the people that we have known for years and cared about for years. Do we really care about seeing new people? So that was the rumor that came out there. Then I saw this picture of Sophia at SUR. So Sophia is Tom Schwartz's girlfriend. Sophia Scoro, I think is her last name. So it was a picture of her and a few of the other SUR employees, including Natalie and Guillermo. Kyle Chan was also in the picture, who's not a SUR staff member. But the picture showed like, everyone at SUR saying, hey, come join the family for a SUR brunch or a SUR meal. And at first, it's just, I didn't really think anything of it. But then after that rumor came out where they said that they were, recasting current employees, I thought, wait a minute, are they going to put Sophia as an employee at SUR, recast the show so that Sophia's on it, which fits the mold, right? She's like a young girl, fresh and hip, working at SUR, allegedly. But then it also has a way to keep Tom Schwartz in the show because that's her partner. So I was like, wait, could this actually be true? That's kind of crazy. So then after this rumor came out, James Kennedy ended up like commenting on a post about it saying, y'all think you have it all figured out, huh? So who really knows? But then the official SUR account ended up reposting a meme that was about this whole thing, about basically Vanderpump Rules being recast. And then this was posted by the Bravo babe, so just want to give her the shout out. And then Bravo for the Rest of Us reposted that. And then the SUR account reposted that with an image or like a gif of James being like, no, 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 no. So in my opinion, that is SUR, the official SUR account, basically shutting down this rumor and saying, no, this is not true. This is not the final season. We're not recasting with current members of like these restaurants, not happening. That's how I took it because that's what came from the official SUR account. What do you guys think? I mean, all of these rumors are going to continue to swirl. We're in September now, so I think we're going to get an answer pretty soon because Ariana's done with Chicago. She did that from August 1st to August 27th. Everybody's basically back in LA, so I think we're at a point where we're going to figure out soon what's happening with Vanderpump Rules, right? So in a little bit more Vanderpump Rules, and I call this like side character news because basically anytime there's stuff going on with like Rachel or Victoria or Billy, I mean, none of these people are currently on the show, so it's annoying that they keep getting themselves involved, but they do. So basically, Rachel has turned her podcast into like a gossip column, which is annoying because no one really cares about her opinions on Vanderpump Rules or what's going on in the Bravo sphere because she doesn't actually have any insider knowledge. She's not friends with any of these people. And I get it. Like, you had this podcast where you wanted to sort of, speak your piece and give your mind on what was being said about you on TV. But then you didn't really know what to do with your podcast after that. And I thought it was a good idea when she started having therapists on and talking about like different mental health issues. But now that she's just treating this as sort of like another one of, I don't know, like sort of like my podcast, right? But I know that I don't have insider information, or sometimes I do actually. I actually probably have more insider information than Rachel at this point. So it's kind of annoying when she just puts this stuff out there. So she did a couple of weeks ago, did a podcast episode where she was talking about Jax Taylor and his mental health issues and him going into inpatient treatment. And then Victoria ended up responding to that, getting all mad. And now Rachel has come out on her podcast to talk about Victoria's response. So I'm just going to play that clip for you guys because hell obviously broke out right after that. So let's play what what Rachel said on her podcast.
Friend has come at you for speaking about it. She came at you kind of hard. How do you feel about that? So Victoria says the girl leaves VPR, ruins people's lives, but then lives and breathes Vanderpump Rules after. Still continues to try and ruin people's lives. If you were genuine, you would reach out on a personal level, but instead you post it for attention and relevance. Also, this is so obvious. You had your publicist reach out to TMZ for a pity party and attention. Gross. Maybe look at who you're dating right now. And if it's quote unquote ruining people's lives, then there's two in that to make that a reality. And you're dating the other person. So I don't know why you're focusing on me. And I'm not continuing to try to ruin people's lives. I really don't know how I have the power to ruin other people's lives, especially now. And your reach out to Jax was sincere. Yeah, and she's saying I should have reached out to him on a personal level. I don't have a way to do that. I don't have his phone number. He has me blocked on Instagram. So unless I wanted to like buy a cameo from him and tell him through a cameo message, there was no way for me to reach out to Jax on a personal level. And she's saying I post it for attention and relevance. Well, the truth of the matter is, I don't know how else to say this without coming across a certain way, but like, I guess I am relevant. Honestly, like I don't understand how Victoria is telling me that I'm putting this out here to be relevant. Jax checked himself into a mental health facility, and so did I. So like I don't know who else is more qualified to talk about this specific topic.
So that was posted by my friend Breaking the Rules Pod Clips. Give her a follow. So after she posted that clip from Rachel's podcast, Victoria responded. So here's what Victoria said. You talk about VPR every week to stay relevant when no one on the show even likes you, not even Tom. He's moved on and doesn't talk about you. Take notes too. Your She's saying take notes. Two, you're right. Maybe it wasn't a good idea for you to reach out on a personal level with your background of being a homewrecker. Also, if you are blocked, why are you even talking about someone who clearly doesn't care about your opinion? I'd blame that on the NyQuil and move on. Three, you're not actively trying to ruin people's lives, as you are suing the woman you claim to be your friend and the man you pursued yourself. You are suing a man knowing what was going on, saying he made you a porn star. Last time I checked, porn, they weren't fully clothed in them. Also, to be a porn star, people actually have to see the video. When I heard that, my jaw was on the ground. But seeing your actions now, it's not surprising. This girl really is trying to scrape up crumbs for anything to talk about or cash a check on. She did make another statement about the video, and she wrote, it clearly says when I heard, and to be a porn star, people have to see the video. Also, I have not seen that video, nor would I want to. She's the only one releasing a podcast about him literally every week. Rachel breaks her silence for the past year. Dead. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Victoria, but I'm kind of agreeing with Victoria. I mean, that was really cringe of Rachel to say that she is relevant. Also, if Jax has blocked you, and I agree with what Victoria says there, if Jax has blocked you, I mean, Jax has blocked me, but if Jax has blocked you, he doesn't want to talk to you, and so he doesn't care about your opinion, and he doesn't want your well wishes. So, in my opinion, you are posting all this shit to stay relevant. You are trying to get people to post clips and to get the clicks and to get the attention and to get all of this. So, I'm really annoyed by the person that she turned out to be because there was a period of time I was supporting her because, to sue someone who took a video of you without your consent is not okay. And I still stand by that. But all this other bullshit that she's been doing since is really pissing me off, especially when it comes to Ariana and even just saying her name at this point, because it's something that sort of rung true to me when I was listening to Ariana in the reunion. I think it was part three when Tom was giving her that half ass apology. She said something like, you brought this girl into our lives in a really fucked up way, meaning Rachel, and now she won't stop talking about me. And she is still talking about Ariana, right? Like, can we not just leave Ariana alone? Like, Rachel, I get you want your clicks and your money and this and that, but let's just never name Ariana again. It's too much. All right, let's move on to our big deep dive, which is that Jax and Brittany have filed for divorce. So I'm sure you guys heard this last week, and I thought it would be a good idea not to just address the idea that they are getting divorced, but maybe to also go into the custody and legal issues that go along with that, because a lot of times that sort of thing is very confusing when it comes to a divorce for, the general public. So I thought with my legal knowledge and my ability to do research and break stuff down, I thought I could do a little bit of a deep dive when it comes to Jax and Brittany's divorce. So I'm just going to initially read you guys the article that came out from TMZ last Tuesday. So it says, Brittany Cartwright is dropping the curtain on her marriage. She just filed for divorce from Jax Taylor. The Vanderpump Rules alum and the Valley star beelined it to court Tuesday and filed for divorce after 5 years of marriage, according to new legal docs obtained by TMZ. In the docs, Brittany is going with irreconcilable differences as the reason for the split. The estranged couple previously announced their separation in February, and Brittany lists the date of separation as January 24th, 2024. Brittany and Jax have one child together, their 3-year-old son Cruz, and Brittany is seeking primary legal and physical custody, but is open to visitation for Jax. TMZ broke the story. Jax decided that he needed inpatient treatment for his mental health issues in the wake of his separation from Brittany. Brittany and Jax started dating way back in 2015. They got engaged in June 2018 at Neptune's Net in Malibu, and in June 2019, they tied the knot at the Kentucky Castle in Versailles, Kentucky. Brittany also wants to block the ability of the court to award spousal support to either of them. Brittany's divorce filing comes after Jax left a treatment center and returned to work on the new Bravo reality TV show, The Valley. They went through a lot together on VPR before they had a number of marital challenges documented on season 1 of The Valley, and now they're going through a divorce. We reached out to a rep for Jax, and they had no comment. So then we heard, right pretty much after that, that Jax ended up being served the divorce papers on camera. So I'm going to read TMZ's article from that. So TMZ says that Jax Taylor may be the #1 guy in the group, but that did stop him from getting hit with divorce documents while filming season 2 of The Valley, TMZ has learned. Sources connected to the show tell TMZ the Bravo personality was served the docs from his estranged wife, Brittany Cartwright, while filming the new season of the reality show on Tuesday. We're told that both Jax and Brittany filmed The Valley on Tuesday. However, they did not film together, which means a third party brought the documents to the Jax's Studio City sports bar owned by, Jax and Brittany. And sources connected to the couple tell TMZ that Brittany took the initiative and decided it was time to file, since her estranged hubby has done too many things for a reconciliation to occur. No word on what exactly went down between the former flames, but sources say that Jax is getting ticked off from all the praise that Brittany's been getting to choose to file, especially as he thinks Brittany has her own dark side to her. Jax may not be the true villain in this split. We're told all will be revealed when the Valley returns for its sophomore season. We've been warned it'll be a heavy one. Relationship issues aside, Jax and Brittany are simply focusing on their young son, Cruz, who has their full attention now that their day-to-day chaos of their marriage is no longer distracting them. So, right after this, rumors were coming out that he was served a month ago, and this isn't true. The divorce filings show that Brittany filed on Tuesday, so Jax was served on Tuesday. This wasn't done for cameras. This wasn't done a month ago. Him being served on camera, I mean, maybe that was done for cameras, but I mean, we love to see it, right? It really feels like the Valley. For a while, to be honest, I thought the season was going to kind of suck because they didn't really seem to have much going on. We were seeing filming of a lot of just really trivial events, but it does seem like the season will now be primarily focused on Jax and Brittany's divorce, and so it does seem like there will be a lot of content to cover. They also ended up filming together on Friday, so there were some stories posted by Jessie Lally and by Sheena of like them in like those bubble suit thingies. Like, that bubble sport where you're like in this big, like giant bubble and then like you push each other. I don't even know what the sport is for, but basically they filmed together for that on Friday, but they were keeping their distance from each other. And Page Six reported this. So they said that another source told TMZ that Taylor could be overheard telling co star Kristen Doty that he checked into rehab in July because he was going out of control. Page Six has reached out to the former couple's rep for comment, but did not immediately hear back. Cartwright filed for divorce from Taylor on Tuesday after 5 years of marriage and after about 6 months of taking time apart. TMZ reported earlier this week that Taylor was served the divorce papers while filming the new season of The Valley at his and Cartwright's sports bar, Jax's Studio City. So then Brittany ended up talking about the divorce very briefly on When Reality Hits, which aired pretty late on Friday night. She did another rewind episode with Captain Lee. They've been doing a lot of rewind episodes lately, obviously, because of what they've been going through, but she did end up speaking a little bit on the divorce. So I'm just going to play that clip for you guys now so you can hear what Brittany had to say.
Episode of When Reality Hits. I think we're going to start off with the elephant in the room. Okay, so it's been a big week. I'm sure everyone listening has seen the news online by now that I filed for divorce from Jax. I unfortunately can't speak on details because everything has been heavily documented on the show since we happen to be filming right now. You will see how everything plays out once the show airs, but I will say this. This season has been the most difficult season I have ever had to film. I never imagined I'd go through something so personal and painful while having the world watch. I'm not saying this for anyone to feel badly because I know that this is the life I chose, and I'm so fortunate in many ways. But I will always want to be real with y'all. Many have said online they think this has been a publicity stunt for the show or to garner ratings, and it's the furthest thing from that. My decision to file wasn't made lightly or quickly. It's taken me many, many years to get to this point where I've gained enough courage and strength to do what was best for me, get myself out of a toxic relationship, and ultimately see my worth. It's been very difficult, but I'm stronger than ever. And my motivation is my son, my Cruzy, who deserves a happy and healthy mommy. Moving forward, Jax and I will be doing the podcast separately. Thank you all so much for the support. I love you very much. And I hope that you enjoy an episode that has some of our best memories together from the past. And stay with us because we will get this together soon. And I love you guys and just hang in there with me. Thank you.
That was really sad. I mean, you can hear the pain in her voice. You can also tell that she's reading it. It sort of reminded me of like when Jax had to make that statement about like Vanderpump Rules not being fake, because remember when he was like yelling around town that Vanderpump Rules is fake, and then he had to like make a statement about like it not being fake because he knew he'd like lose his job with Bravo. So I don't know, it just sort of gave me that vibe in the sense. Not that being said, of course, I feel so sad for Brittany. And like I said, you can hear the heartbreak in her voice, but I feel like she needed to write it down or have it written down just because it was such a difficult thing to sort of talk about. And like she said, we're going to be getting a lot of this on the Valley. I hope they don't sit on this too long. Like, I hope we get the Valley early January. Like, January 1st would be ideal. I mean, tomorrow would be ideal, but I don't want to sit on this too long. And I also feel like Jax and Brittany are the type of people where things are going to be changing constantly. So, as I am about to get into the deep dive on their divorce, I just want to mention I can only speak in generalities. I am not an attorney myself. I do not know Jax and Brittany. I am not their attorneys. So, many of these issues are also jurisdictionally specific, which I have tried to look into in terms of like the California codes, but my research isn't perfect. And like I said, everything is so very specific and can really come down to things that are still changing, right? So many of the decisions and issues that need to be dealt with, those decisions haven't even been made yet, for example, right? So there's certain things we just don't know the answer to because certain decisions haven't been made. So I'm just going to talk about some of the general considerations that would happen in a divorce and in a custody situation, okay? So in any divorce, one party files for divorce and the other party is served. And we know that that happened last week. We know that Brittany filed for divorce on Tuesday and Jax was served the same day. We know that Brittany is seeking primary physical and legal custody of Cruz, but is open to visitation from Jax. And we also know that they don't have a prenup. I remember when they got engaged, so I want to say season 7 at the reunion, that Andy asked them if they had a prenup. And I remember Brittany saying, "Nah, that's my baby." Well, that's your baby now, who is going to be in a little bit of an issue. So let's get into child custody to start with, okay? So in California, child custody is divided into two categories: legal custody and physical custody. Legal custody refers to the right to make important decisions about a child's life, such as education, healthcare, and religion. And physical custody, on the other hand, refers to where the child lives on a day to day basis. There are two types of physical custody: sole custody and joint custody. Sole custody is when one parent has both legal and physical custody of the child, and the other parent may have visitation rights, but they do not have any decision-making authority. And so some examples of these important decisions could be things like school or childcare, religious activities, psychiatric, psychological, or other mental health counseling or therapy needs, doctors, dentists, orthodontists, or other medical care, sports, summer camps, vacations, extracurricular activities, travel, things like that. Joint custody is when both parents share legal custody of the child, but one parent may have primary physical custody and the other parent may have visitation rights. California courts make child custody decisions based on what's in the best interest of the child, but the judge will consider various factors such as the child's age, health, education needs, and relationships with each of the parents when making their decision. Another factor that can impact custody decisions in California is the parent's ability to provide a stable and supportive home environment. This can include factors such as the parent's employment status, their income and financial stability, their housing situation, their ability to provide for their child's basic needs, and the court will also look at each parent's history of caregiving and their overall parenting skills. One factor that can have a significant impact on custody decisions is any history of abuse or domestic violence. If one parent has a history of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse towards the other parent or the child, this can greatly impact their chances of receiving custody. The court will also take into account evidence of abuse, including police reports, medical records, and witness testimony. And the steps would then be in terms of wanting custody. One person files for custody. So they would file a petition for custody with the family court, and this petition must state the reason for seeking custody and the type of custody being requested. So we know that Brittany has done that. Then there would be attending mediation. This is the second step. And in California, most courts require that you attend mediation before a custody hearing. During mediation, a neutral third party will help the two parties come to an agreement on custody arrangements. This can save time and money by avoiding a custody hearing. But if that doesn't work out, then there would be a custody hearing. And the court would hold this hearing. And during the hearing, the two parties would present arguments for custody, and the court would decide what is in the best interest of the child. And there would be providing evidence. This could be witness testimony, expert reports, and documentation. And the next step would be following the court's orders, whatever those are. So once custody has been awarded, follow the order to maintain the custody, because failing to do so could end up resulting in losing custody altogether. And then they will have to follow a parenting plan, which will set out a schedule of basically when each parent can see Cruz. So the parenting plan is very important in any custody situation, especially if it's involving visitation. In California, the court typically encourages ongoing and meaningful relationships between children and both parents unless it's determined that it's not in the child's best interest due to abuse or safety concerns. So basically, this is saying that it's hard to get sole custody and there has to be real concerns. Um, Brittany has always been very clear on how good a father Jax is and that she's really always wanted him around. So it's very strange to hear her wanting sole physical and legal custody and only visitation for Jax. The only reason in my mind that she would be doing that would be that she has concerns about Jax's ability to parent. Why would she have those concerns? Well, we know that he recently went away for inpatient treatment. Now, we were told it was for mental health, but some of those of us in the know that maybe it was something to do with drugs. So I'm going to say allegedly because I don't know anything for a fact, but from what I hear, this wasn't just mental health, this was also for drug treatment. So given also the fact that, to my understanding, Jax did not finish his treatment duration at this facility, he left early. I could see Brittany saying to the court, well, he went to get this drug treatment, he didn't finish the drug treatment, and therefore I do not feel safe with him having custody of the child. I feel safe with him having visitation because I know he's a good dad and I feel like he can see Cruz in little bits, but I don't feel safe with him having custody of the child. That is the only thing I can think of because unless he hasn't done something dangerous involving Cruz, why wouldn't she want him to have custody, right? I do think he will fight her on this. I don't think he's going to take that line down. There's nothing that he determines to be more important than his son Cruz. But again, I just feel like something bad must have happened here, right? Like, I'm not a person that knows what goes on in the mind of someone who does drugs, but the only thing I can sort of think of or remember, I just remember this scene from like Jersey Shore where Mike Sorrentino was like on cocaine and he like bashed his head into the wall when they were in Italy in like season 3 or something like that of Jersey Shore. So, I mean, drugs can definitely make you violent, they can make you aggressive, and I don't know if those are Britney's concerns, and I also don't know if something happened that got her to that place. We also don't know exactly what led to Jax going to inpatient treatment. I sort of heard that through the grapevine that producers made him go, but again, was it mental health? Was it drugs? What exactly was it? And what did he do that was so bad that production forced him to go, right? So obviously, I hope nothing bad and nothing dangerous happened when it comes to Cruz. But I can't think of any other reason Brittany would want custody and only give Jax visitation unless there was something dangerous that happened involving Cruz. So now I'm going to move on to community property. So in California, a couple's community property must be divided equally between them unless the spouses have agreed otherwise in writing. In California, all property, including real estate and personal property that a couple acquires during their marriage, is community property. Separate property, as a general rule, is any property that isn't classified as community property. For example, property owned by the person before marriage, property that one spouse inherited or received as a gift, and any money made from separate property such as rent or profits. The date of separation matters here because anything bought after the date of separation is considered separate property. So Brittany listed January 24th as the date of separation, which she has mentioned many times is the date after her birthday. That is the date that she moved into her Airbnb. I don't know specifically if they had any big ventures or any big business things that have happened since January, but if so, those things would be considered separate property. So in terms of the things that we know that they have together, we know that they have the house, we know that they have the bar, and we know that they have the podcast. So basically the way it would work in terms of court, in terms of a divorce, would be that each side would get an expert to determine the value of the community property. So like the home, for example, would be appraised, and one of them could buy the other out, which, in my opinion, I think the best interest would be to sell the house. I mean, Jax has said before that, the reason that he didn't move out when they got separated was that he couldn't afford to pay the mortgage and to pay rent. And he's always said that Brittany makes a lot more money than he does, and that's why she was able to do that. But I think it would be in their best interest to sell the house and to both buy something or to both rent something smaller. but Jax can be bullheaded, right? Like think about in season 6 when he broke up with Brittany and he said he wanted to live down the hall, right? So I could totally see him making this very difficult. But again, remember, guys, they don't have a prenup, but it would be in their best interest to sell the house. But for some reason, among these Vander Valley people, the house always seems to be the most contentious issue. Then there's the bar. So remember that Jax's was already a pre-established establishment. This was a place called Rocco's, and Jax was approached by these people, these partners, who said, "We want you to be able to turn a piece of this bar into Jax's." But we don't know what the partnership agreement is. Like, I know that Jax and Brittany didn't put down any of their own money, but I'm not sure how they get profits now. I just don't really know how that works. And I don't believe that a business agreement like that is public documents that I could get. But at the same time, the bar does well. The bar is a big piece of their revenue. So I could see them not giving that up, right? That being said, you have Jax for a while. He was doing karaoke nights for there for a while, and he was really running the show. And then when he was away, and even when he wasn't away, Brittany has been hosting all of those bachelorette nights where she's had people from the Bachelorette come and people from the Valley come and host these really fun like trivia nights with the Bachelorette. But apparently Jax is going to be there next week for September 3rd, not next week, sorry, tomorrow, or this week, sorry, September 3rd. He'll be there at Jax's hosting the Bachelorette finale night, right? So, I could see this also being a contentious issue. He would probably fight her on it as well. And then we have the podcast When Reality Hits. So the podcast started in March of 2023. The trailer was actually March 17th, 2023, which is actually mere days after Scandival. Like, I know that they started this podcast sort of out of Scandival, but I didn't know how close it was in time, right? Like, Scandival was March 1st, and they launched this podcast on March 17th. It's pretty wild. So the way podcasts usually work is that there's usually a 1-year contract. As Brittany said, in that clip that I played for you guys, though, they do plan to continue to transfer off the podcast. So as we've seen in pretty much since they've separated, either one of them has done the podcast or the other. There's been a couple of episodes where they've shared it. Those are episodes where they ended up fighting and it was super awkward. But based on what Brittany has said, they are going to keep switching off in terms of the weeks. I would expect them to continue to do that. I mean, it's a top 200 podcast. It does really, really well. And I could see them wanting to continue that as well. But it also kind of reminds me of the Lala and Randall situation, because I don't know if you guys remember, but when Lala initially started her podcast, it was actually called Give Them Lala with Randall. Randall was on the podcast with her. Then they broke up, and he really wanted the money and didn't. And obviously, she wanted to keep doing the show, right? She wasn't going to stop doing the podcast. So she ended up having to pay him out for the duration of the contract of the podcast. And I remember her saying it was so much money that she was actually paying him more for the podcast than he was paying her in child support, which was wild. So those are some considerations to think about, right? But, the courts will always lean towards mediation when it comes to the property. And basically, they'll have to battle each other in court if they want something that the other person wants. That's basically what'll happen. So let's get into spousal support. So from the divorce filing, we saw in the report that Brittany wanted to block either party to request spousal support. That's not a thing. Anyone can ask for anything. So if Jax wants spousal support, he can ask for it. But spousal support is not automatic. It depends on the children, health, disparity in income, and lots of different factors. So we'll sort of have to see what the court says in that regard. I definitely think Jax makes enough to sustain himself. So I don't know that he would get spousal support. But again, it just reminds me of like another precedent-setting case almost when you look at Rachel Lindsay. I don't know if you guys remember her. She's the first Black bachelorette, and she recently just got divorced from her husband, who she met on the show, Brian Absolo, and he claimed he's a doctor, okay? Chiropractic doctor. So a very educated man. He claimed that because of her influencer career, they had to move around a bunch and he couldn't settle his practice or sustain a practice or get clients or this and that. So now Rachel Lindsay has to pay him spousal support for, I believe, over a year. She has to pay him $13,000 a month. And she didn't get a prenup, which she's pretty mad at herself for because she is a lawyer. And, you look at situations like that and you're like, I thought I knew someone, right? I thought I knew someone. And I thought this was also someone who could support themselves, being a doctor and all. But now Rachel has to pay this man for the next year. Absolute bullshit. Let's get into child support. So child support would still be required by Jax if Brittany is granted sole custody. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know this, but child support is basically calculated based on a formula, and it's very jurisdictional. So there's a formula that the courts come up with. They plug in some numbers, boom, boom, boom. That's the number, and that's how much people need to pay. So that's basically it on the deep dive of Jackson Brittany. Like I said, so many of these things are going to depend on the decisions that they make going forward. What they want to do with the podcast, what they want to do with the bar, what they want to do with the house, what they want to do about cruise. And all of these things and all of the battles that they end up having about it could change things as we go forward in terms of their divorce. All right. Let's get into the Real Housewives of OC. So I didn't get to recap episode 7 last week because I wasn't here, you guys. So let's talk our main takeaways from episode 7, then I'll get into episode 8. But I'm really, like I keep saying, enjoying OC this year. I feel like I need to go back to the beginning and watch from the beginning, even though I'm told the old seasons suck. I'm always saying I feel like I don't have enough of the history, and I feel like I need to have more of the history. So I got to go back and watch from the beginning, I feel like. All right, episode 7 was called All Gloves Are Off, and we still have the 2 cast trips. So we've got half the cast in Big Bear, half the cast in La Quinta. And La Quinta, I keep saying it wrong, and I'm so mad at myself. Okay. So Shannon ends up talking to the girls on her part of the trip about John Jansen and how he's suing her. And they do sort of call her on this because she portrayed this picture like she had paid for everything, but now he's suing her for money that he lent her, right? So, this shows a different story now that he has given her 75 grand. So Shannon tells a story about John's daughter's birthday where she's explaining, when they had first started dating, it was his daughter's birthday. They decided to go on a family vacation. So basically, she paid for her whole family and his whole family to go to LA, and the whole trip cost like 10 grand. And Emily's like, well, were you trying to buy his love? And she's like, no. And like Heather and Emily, or sorry, Heather and Gina are sort of explaining like that's just sort of what you do when you're in a relationship, and it's sort of like all in one pot. And what I've realized about Shannon is like buying things for people are sort of her love language. And I've been the same way. It's like, look what I can do for you, look what I can give you, right? And it sort of is like it makes you feel good on one sense, but on the other hand, the person isn't sort of reciprocating. So I could see why over time that would be frustrating to her, even though she's the one offering him all of these things, right? She's like, look at all the things I can buy for you, look at all the things I can do for you, look how much I love you. I've been there, I get it. But I am glad that Shannon has these women to talk to in this moment because obviously she doesn't have Tamra or anybody else who is really supportive of her. So even though she's had issues with Gina in the past, she's not super close with Emily or Heather. It's really nice that these women are supporting her and being there for her because she really is going through so much. There is only so much a person can take, right? I mean, it's pretty wild. So Jen on her end ends up talking to the ladies about her relationship with Will and Will's girlfriend. So, and I keep saying this, I didn't know, and I guess this is because we didn't get a lot about Jen and Will in last season because it was all about Jen and Ryan, but we didn't get a lot in last season about Jen and Will, and I didn't know that Jen had such a bad relationship with Will. So she's explaining in this scene that he's blocked her and that they don't really communicate. And Tamara ends up showing her a video on Instagram of Will playing with all the kids, and you can hear like laughing and everyone having a good time. And it's so hard for Jen because she didn't have that relationship with him, right? She didn't see that with him. And it's so true that different people bring out different things in you, right? So the girlfriend that he has now and the family that he has now could just be bringing out this really amazing side of him that his marriage with Jen didn't bring out, which isn't Jen's fault necessarily. It just means that he and Jen weren't meant to be together, right? And Jen also explains that Will's girlfriend is a previous friend of hers named Laura. But you also can't really, get mad at this Laura girl, because like Jen, you cheated on your husband, so like I can't really feel bad for you there. But Jen just wants them all to be able to get along. And it is a nice dream, but I would say that the majority of families that are blended like that aren't all Brady Bunch and Kumbaya, but like I totally get why she would want that, right? You want the peace, you want the communication. It would make things a lot easier. And Tamara then talks about how things are with Sydney and how she hasn't talked to Sydney since Sophia's graduation. Now, Tamara has made this whole Sydney thing a big part of this season where she's explaining how she has this daughter she doesn't speak to. Now, Sydney has come out on Instagram and explained why she doesn't talk to her mom. So I'm actually just going to read this post now so that everyone has a better understanding of where Sydney is coming from. Because to date, we only have gotten where Tamara is coming from, right? So Sydney said, I want to start by clearing some things up as my mother continues to talk about me despite me requesting her to stop speaking of me publicly as I don't want to be associated with her or the show. For starters, I did not want to be Or sorry, for starters, I did not move out when my parents got a divorce, nor did I choose my father's side in the divorce. My parents separated in 2010. I moved out of my mother's house in 2013. Me leaving has nothing to do with the divorce. It has to do with the living conditions at my mother's house and the way she treated me and still treats me today. In regards to choosing sides, I actually choose my mother's side when my parents separated. This was due to the fact that my mother, the true parent alienator, would constantly talk negatively about my father in front of me and my siblings, putting us kids in the middle and my parents' arguments. She even called us Simon or Mini Simon when we did something bad or told us that we were acting like your father. This parent alienation caused me to resent my father and take her side. However, as I got older, I realized that what she was doing, along with other things that were toxic. The reason I left my mother's house are that she was neglectful, leaving us at home with no food, or simply ignoring us entirely. She constantly put herself first, and the biggest reason was that she was mentally and emotionally abusive. She was no mother to me. This was an unhealthy environment for all of us kids, and unfortunately, I was the only one to recognize this and take steps to get out of that toxic environment. I've explained this to her numerous times in court, in therapy, and when we would meet up, that the only reason I am not living with her is because she continues to do the things that push me out of her house, like talking about me on the show, press, social media, doing embarrassing things on the show, lying to me, and putting herself first, to name a few. I went to therapy with my mother for 3 years. I was forced by the courts and my father to try to mend the relationship with my mother. Unfortunately, my mother is unable to recognize that she is in the wrong and continues to put blame on everything else. If she would have put the effort into actually working on our relationship instead of talking and crying about how much she misses me on the show and wishes things were different, she wouldn't have missed my entire high school career. So that is pretty bold. And so maybe if Tamra didn't exploit her daughter for the show, they would be in a better place. But, those are two very different sides of the story. And I'm very curious to hear if we'll ever hear directly from Sydney again on that, or if we'll ever hear from Tamra on her response to what Sydney has said. We also get Gina and Emily playing pickleball and making up. And I'm glad that they made up. And that is just sort of a main takeaway. I don't want to get into their whole back and forth, but I am glad that they made up. I really love their friendship. I feel that they're both very different from each other, but I also love that because, in a way, how opposites can sort of attract and they can both bring things to this friendship that the other sort of lacks. So that's something I've always liked. But when they came back from their conversation, Heather is annoyed. And Heather tells the camera that she thinks Gina has changed and maybe there's more going on with her at home than she thought. Yeah, there is. Like, I feel like Gina is like getting the short end of the stick this season, and maybe she seems like she's being a shit stirrer, but like she's, got this stuff going on with Travis. Travis has tried to break up with her. She's going through renovations. She's going with Travis moving out. She's going through fighting with Katie, with Gina, with Heather. Or sorry, not Gina, with Emily, with Heather. She's going through a lot right now, and I think people need to be a little more understanding. She also lost that real estate deal, so I wish people would give Gina a little bit more of a break. That's just me, but I've always really liked Gina, in my opinion. So Alexis gets a call from Johnny J while they're in Big Bear, and she starts freaking out and calling Shannon a liar, and she's like crying, and she's going hysterical, and she's saying, "We're gonna release the tapes." And I'm just confused here because, like, these tapes that she keeps talking about, they're very threatening. All Shannon has done so far, in my opinion, is say that John had paid for everything, or sorry, that she paid for everything for John in the beginning. That is all that she has said so far. So, all I can see in terms of a connection, in terms of why John would then call her at that point and start freaking out, and then Alexis starts freaking out, is like, does John have friends on production or something? Because there was that previous scene a little bit earlier where Shannon was telling the girls that she paid for everything in the beginning, and she was giving that example of John's daughter's birthday in Los Angeles and paying 10 grand for that. And then a few scenes later, or like later that day, Alexis gets the call from John, who's freaking out because Shannon's lying again. So the only connection I can make is that, like, John has a friend on production who told him about that scene, or he knows someone in that scene who told him about that scene. Like, I don't know what else is going on here for her to be freaking out to this level, or for John to be freaking out to this level. I I just don't really understand this. So then we have Katie and Emily going with their kids to get candy, and they're going shopping together. And Emily tells Katie what the videos are, and she says it's allegedly ring camera footage of Shannon almost running over John's daughter the night of the DUI. So here are my thoughts on this. If Shannon committed a crime the night of the DUI, why didn't you give the police the footage then, right? I don't know if this counts as obstruction of justice. I don't think it does because I think the daughter would need to decide whether she wanted to press charges. But like, that means you've been like hanging on to this for all of this time to try to decide whether you wanted to use it against her. I don't really understand still what it is she's done that he thinks she deserves this. That's the confusing part. I also don't understand why Alexis is so upset. And Emily rightly says that if John and Alexis are so happy, why don't they just ride off in the sunset together? Why are they dragging Shannon's lifeless body along with them? I completely agree. And Emily worries that it'll send Shannon over the edge. And of course it will. Like I said, there is only so much that a person can take, right? So then we have Jen and Ryan at the nail salon, which is weird that they do this together, but also kind of cute. And Ryan's talking about how Jen does everything for the kids. And she feels guilty when she has to change their lives so much because of the divorce and all the things that have happened. So she sort of gives them everything that they want because, she feels so guilty about all the changes that have been made. And I sort of resonate with this a little bit because, like, her kids basically don't know how to do anything for themselves. And I am in a similar situation. So I didn't come from a family where I didn't have anything, but I did come from a family where I wasn't allowed to do anything. I don't really know why, but I did not know how to hard boil an egg until I was 24. I was never allowed to touch the stove. I was never allowed to do anything. So when it was time to adult, I had absolutely no idea how, and it was a rude awakening, pretty quick. Then we have this scene of Shannon and Tamra finally getting together to talk, okay? And this scene, I felt so bad for Shannon because Tamara talks to her in such like an attacky sort of way, in a very like tit for tat sort of way. And Tamara starts doing this whole like mimic thing where she's like, Shannon, this is how you're sounding. So I'm showing you how you sound, okay? Okay. And it's just wildly immature, very unprofessional, very not helpful in the situation. And Shannon insists that Tamara has been defaming her this entire time, which I agree she has. And Tamara taunts her by saying, yeah, but I don't have a drinking problem. You have a drinking problem. And Shannon gets defensive like anyone would. But I do want to mention that Tamara looks absolutely beautiful in this scene. Like I sort of can't stop looking at her. She looks like a porcelain doll. Just so beautiful. I just want to mention, despite the fact that she's such a bitch and she's so mean, she looked quite stunning. So Shannon rightly gets up, leaves the table because she needs a minute. She goes to the bathroom. And Tamara even had the nerve to ask the producers, oh, did she go to the bathroom to have a drink? Like, come on. Come on. Like, you really are, as Shannon said, pushing her further down in this hole. She's in a hole. She's trying to climb out of the hole, and you keep pushing her deeper, deeper into this hole. So Shannon tells Tamara that basically, and I agree what I had just said. And, I also had friends in a similar way that would encourage me to fail. It was a similar but different situation. So in my situation, I was trying to lose weight and I was asking my friends to sort of encourage me. But when there would be moments where I'd want something bad, I would calculate it in my head. I'd be like, okay, well, if I'm going to have this bad thing, then I won't have this other thing later. And that's how I would make it work out. So I'd go to have the bad thing. And then my friends would sort of like start shutting me down. You can't have that. Don't do that. You're going to get fat. You're not going to win. Like, win in terms of like losing the weight I wanted to lose. So you're not going to win. You're not going to get there. You're not going to lose the weight. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. I'm not joking. This is literally how they would treat me. So it was similar in the sense that it's like your type of love doesn't work for me because what Tamara is trying to do is to give this tough love to Shannon, right? And my friends are trying to do the same thing to me. But what I wanted was love and encouragement. And all they did was attack, attack, attack to try to get me to the place they wanted me to be. I don't know where that's ever worked for anyone, but it didn't work for me. Didn't work for me, not working for Shannon. So Tamara finally does start to soften a little bit, and that's when Shannon starts talking about being sued, right? Because Tamara resonates with this. She went through this with Shannon when they were both sued by Jim Bellino, right? They went through years of the stress and the legal fees and the court process, all of it. So Tamara doesn't really have much to say here, right? Like she's sort of just like, yeah, that's a crappy situation. Yeah, because she knows that Shannon is right. She knows that what John is doing is really screwed up. So at the end of this, Tamara ends up inviting Shannon to this Traitors party that she has coming up in the next episode, which is great and which we need for continuity because, the cast has to come back together. We can't have any more vacations that are split up or else we're going to be going into New Jersey territory. But I am sort of annoyed for Shannon's sake that she thinks that she and Tamara have made up. All right, let's move into episode 8, which was called Once a Traitor, Always a Traitor. Now, I really enjoyed this episode because of the Traitors theme. So, normally in these Real Housewives or pretty much any of these Bravo shows, we just want to see the conversation, right? We want to see what two people are talking about, but there has to be a venue for where they're talking about something. So we have to watch them play flag football or soccer or all this other nonsense. But when they played the Traders game, that I enjoyed because I love the Traders. And it is a game of being cunning and manipulative and all of this stuff. And so I felt like this episode was more of a fun watch than those episodes where we watch and people are just playing sports. So the episode started off with Shannon having her breathalyzer installed in the car, and while this isn't like really a main takeaway scene, I actually thought it was so interesting because it seems like you can get a violation just for like doing it wrong, right? So apparently you have to hum and blow at the same time, which Shannon was really struggling to do, which I could probably see myself struggling to do. I'm sort of a klutz when it comes to like instructions of any kind, so I could see myself trying to do this and failing. Also, I know I ain't so good at a blowjob, so a hum and a blow sounds like too many things. So Shannon tries to blow in it and it doesn't work because she didn't hum. If you try to start it before starting the car, no, if you try to start the car before breathalyzing, you'll get a violation. If you do it wrong, you'll get a violation. If you are driving, apparently, there's going to be like random checks where you have to breathalyze in the middle while you're driving. And if you don't, that would be a violation. Like, I feel like there's so many circumstances here that sort of set you up to fail. I was just so fascinated by this scene, and I kind of want to try a breathalyzer just once in my life just to see what it's like because it looks really, really hard to do. So I feel for Shannon. Um, then we get this scene with Jen and Katie doing yoga, and I thought this scene was really interesting because we got a little bit more about Katie and her family situation. So Katie talks about how her daughter wants to change her last name to Janella. So you remember that Katie has 4 kids. She has 3 kids with her ex and 1 kid with her current husband, Matt. So her daughter does not speak to the dad, and that's why she's been very close with Matt, and she's always called him Padre, but apparently recently called him Dad, and that was a really big moment for him. But she apparently has previously found the word dad or father traumatic, right? Which is understandable if she had a bad relationship with her dad in the past. Katie explains that she was married at 21, but she had a 14-year-old baby at the time. She wasn't sure if she really wanted to get married, but it was just one of those things. We have a baby together. This is what love is. I don't know. And then right before her wedding, her brother-in-law was like, "Good luck with this one," or something like that. And then she told her parents that she didn't want to get married. And her dad was like, "Well, we flew all the way here. We're in Hawaii. You have a baby. You got to do it." So she did. It was just really interesting that that was her parents' reaction. And then they had another kid, and then they kept fighting about the kids, and things just got like worse and worse and worse. And she apparently tried to leave many times, but ended up kept coming back. And a big part of that was apparently her very Christian parents who were like, you need to go back. You need to be in a marriage, which is very similar to Jen's situation because her parents also didn't really support her on her divorce from Will as well. They also wanted her to see her marriage through, right? So they do have a lot of similarities there. And then Katie also explained that eventually she did leave and that he took everything from her down to like her yearbooks. That was a little confusing for me because she only named things that were like childhood things and not like more like recent things. But I think maybe that was sort of her point that he's taken everything down to like even like her childhood memories and things that she had kept, I guess. Now, here's the confusing part when it comes to the father's relationship with his daughter, Kaylee. Kaylee? Kylie. I think her name is Kylie. So this is the one who doesn't speak to the father and is changing her last name to Janella. So Katie explained that there was a period of time where her mother was sick. Katie's mother was sick, and she wanted her children to come visit the mother. So one of Katie's sons, she said that okay, these are the exact words that she used. Katie said that her ex made it feel like he wouldn't let one of the sons see her mother when she was sick. And then Kylie sent the father a text basically calling him selfish, and then he cut her off. So I'm confused what Katie meant when she said she felt like the father wouldn't let the kid come see her mother. What do you mean felt like he wouldn't let you? He didn't let the kid come see the mother, or you felt like he didn't want the kid to come see the mother? That's the confusing part. I am totally on Kylie's side here because, the father is the adult. He's the one who should be making the effort. And even if she called him selfish and called him all these names, all these, everything in the book, it doesn't really matter. You're the father. You need to be the one who steps up. That being said, we don't know his side of the story. And I also think it's interesting that Katie says that one of her sons lives with the father and that the father has custody of this child. And she said, sometimes these things happen in custody issues. But she says it so nonchalantly. Like, I don't know if you guys heard that Bristol Palin is going through a similar situation with her son. So her oldest son is now living full time with his dad. And this was absolutely devastating to Bristol Palin. And for Katie to sort of just be nonchalantly like, well, sometimes these things happen in these custody issues, you would think, I don't know, you would think that this would be very, very painful for her. Then there was all this stuff about her divorce in the news. So I'm going to read you guys an article that I saw. So it says The Real Housewives of OC, Katie Janela accused her ex husband of subjecting their three children to shocking acts of physical and emotional abuse during an ugly custody battle, court records obtained by RadarOnline.com reveal. The budding reality star and former golf reporter accused Andrew Sundeseth, I guess that's his name, Andrew Sunseth, that's her ex-husband, of calling their daughter a bee and their son Jack something and idiots. All of these like bad words are crossed out. The pair shared three children. Janella further accused her ex, Janella further alleged her ex put the kids' health at risk, punched one of them, and acted inappropriately around the children, including having sex with his girlfriend in their presence. The couple got married in July 2005 and separated in January 2016. Sunseth filed for divorce a month later, writing in court papers the marriage was irretrievably broken with no possibility of reconciliation. Katie claims Sundeth called Kaylee, who was 14 years old at the time, an A word, a disgrace, and an embarrassment, added that he allowed his girlfriend to repeatedly tell Kaylee that she was a W word. Katie also accused her ex of being violent, writing, During spring break 2019, he punched Gavin in the chest. The agreement was made between the two that Andrew would have primary legal and physical custody of the children and the final say when it came to major decisions. Katie was awarded visitation with her children. Katie and her ex agreed not to make any derogatory remarks about the other in front of the children. So, based on what I just read, like how would this man get custody of any of the children if this were true and Katie only gets visitation? Like if he was this violent around the children and abusive, how is this possible? So, I feel like I need to interview Katie because I feel like there are a lot of holes here and a lot of missing information. I haven't looked into this divorce anymore. This is an article that I saw. I could do my research and look into it a bit more, and I will. But I think once I get Katie on the pod, I think it would be more prevalent then because there's a lot more we need to understand about Katie and her very unique situation. So that being said, I do really love that, Katie and Jen have each other because both of their situations are so unique and they can really learn from each other in terms of, putting these blended families together and making it work. I really do love that. Tamra takes Sophia for driving lessons, and she mentions that two of her kids don't speak to the dad, and one doesn't speak to Tamra. And she says it's all because of the divorce, but as I read you previously, Sydney says it's not about that. Now, you would think, though, that the children would be the ones who would speak to each other, if anything, right? So I think it's so interesting that some of her children don't even speak to each other, because you would think that out of anyone, the person who understands the divorce or the familial situation or the parents, you would think that the person who understands that the most is your sibling. And I feel like I'm sort of currently going through a similar situation. So I am currently a child of divorce. I am 40 years old, and my parents at 70 years old have now decided that they would like to divorce. Yep, you heard that right. Told us last week they want to live out the rest of their lives happily. I don't know what that means, but between my sister and I, like my parents have always had a very toxic relationship. My mother is a narcissist, and I have always had a really bad relationship with them, but my sister has always had an okay relationship with them. And I've never really understood that because, again, you would think that if anyone understood my situation, it would be her. But she doesn't always, right? And even though she was there while we were growing up, she sort of feels like her upbringing was different than mine. And again, you would think that because we grew up in the same home, in the same environment, our upbringings would be similar and the way that we would view our upbringings would be similar. But they're not always, right? So that's why I do see a lot of myself in this situation, or pretty much any of these kids' situations amongst these blended families where the kids don't speak to each other, because it's very interesting how you would think that that person in your family or sibling would get you better than anybody else, but it's very possible that they could see things a completely different way. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then we had them doing the Traitors game, which was my favorite part. Teddy Mellencamp is basically playing the role of Alan Cummings, the host. And I kind of loved it when she was like, "Welcome, Housewives and Vicky." It was bitchy, but it was funny. So I know that most people hate Teddy, and I actually kind of like Teddy. And I know I'm like one of very few, but it's annoying because I liked Teddy and then she kind of fucked me over. And I don't know if I told you guys this story, but basically, I made a post on Instagram. She read my post on Instagram, but read it as like a quote from a podcast or something. So I messaged her and Emily about it and I said, "Hey, you guys, for your popping off podcast, you made a mistake. You had read my post as a quote from a podcast. It was actually this. If you wouldn't mind correcting." Like, I didn't think it was a big deal. It happens all the time. They both, like, left the conversation and then, like, didn't make the change. So I was really annoyed because, like, you know, that's fraud, right? Like, that was, words that I wrote that you read out as your own or as somebody else's, so that kinda pissed me off. And I wanna like you, Teddy, but when you sort of screw me over in the, social media sphere, it's hard to keep taking your side, but regardless, it was still kinda nice to see her because I love how much the other ladies despise her. And the other thing I love about Teddy, which most people hate about Teddy, is how cringy she can be. And I know that is a weird thing to like about somebody, but when she does those like cringy pre-planned reads, like the January 6th thing and the cancer thing, she's been planning those for weeks. I find it so cringy that when she does it and it comes off so obviously pre-planned, I find that funny and it makes me enjoy the episode more. So just saying. That's my Teddy ramble. So I didn't end up understanding the rules of the game whatsoever. Pretty much, I don't understand the rules of the game and the real traders either, but I still really enjoyed the idea of the game. And we did get a really good scene here where Emily pulls Jen aside to apologize for her. So we saw an earlier scene where Emily is sort of explaining to Shane how she's been acting towards Jen and how she knows that that's projection based on her relationship with her mother, how her mother didn't go to college and blames that on other people, how she had to basically raise herself. She had to be hard. She had to be mean because she had to take care of herself. And now she's projecting that onto Jen. And so I was actually really impressed with how well Emily knows herself. Like, it usually takes years of therapy to basically understand yourself to that level. So I don't know what she's doing or if she goes to therapy, but for her to figure that out that quickly, color me impressed. And I also really respect her for coming to Jen and being like, "Listen, I was wrong. I did the wrong thing. The way I spoke to you wasn't okay. I see a lot of my mother and that situation in your family, and that's what I was doing. I was projecting that onto you. That wasn't okay for me to do, and I'm sorry." That's a really big person, and I really respect her for that. And this whole thing, this whole projection thing made me sort of realize I project a lot of my stuff onto people too. Not necessarily my childhood, but I mean, I definitely have projected like things that I thought were unfair, like when it's so easy for people to get jobs or get into relationships, which are things that have always been very difficult for me. When it just seems to happen to people so easily, I'm always, getting sort of mad at them for it in a way. Not anymore, but I could see myself, I have done this in the past. I would, sort of project my anger about how difficult certain things were for me onto other people where it seemed so easy for them, and I ended up losing some friendships because of it, because of the way I was acting. And it's really something important to notice about yourself, but it's also something important to realize about others. Someone said something to me recently that really resonated with me. It was something to the effect of, "You have no idea how often people project things, and if you did have an idea how often people are projecting things, you have no idea how often it has nothing to do with you. It's has nothing to do with you 90% of the time." And sort of putting that in your mind sort of shifts your whole perspective on a lot, right? Like, if you're walking down the street and somebody gives you a dirty look, this is something I learned in therapy. Think of 5 reasons why somebody could be giving you that dirty look. They had a bad day. Someone just gave them a dirty look. There could be all of these other reasons why someone just gave you that dirty look that aren't about you. And if you can sort of internalize that and take that in and start thinking about things in that way, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. I'm telling you. Okay? This is a little piece of therapy I'm giving you guys for free. All right, what else did we have in this episode? So we have Tamra and Vicky and Shannon all getting together and sort of talking things out about the Trace Amigas. And it's at this point that Tamra decides to tell Shannon, John and Alexis basically want you to clear his name. And she's not specifying what that means or whether he would like drop the lawsuit if she did. But Shannon freaks out. She's like, "I am not going to lie. I am not going to lie. I'm not going to do that." And I don't blame her. But again, Lie about what? Like, what does Alexis and John want her to say? That he didn't, or that he did pay for everything in the beginning? Is that it? Is that all he wants her to say? Like, which she's not gonna do because that would be a lie, so she's pissed off. Um, and again, yeah, like clearing his name about what? I just don't get it. But the three do seem good here, even though they decide not to move forward with the Tres Amigas, or Tamra tells the camera that anyway. But it's clear that all of this, the three of them even just seeming chummy, is for the cameras, because we know that in current day press, Tamra is talking mad shit about both of them. She even said about Vicky like she doesn't deserve an orange or something like that on the reality podcast. And then Vicky did a Ask Me Anything over the weekend, and somebody said, "Would you ever trust Tamra again?" And she said, "Absolutely flipping never ever, nor do I want to ever be friends with her again." So that pretty much shows where we are. But the way the game ended was that Heather was the traitor, and I have checked and she still hasn't updated her IMDb, which I have, tagged her in some posts about. She's got to get on that. Got to get on the IMDb, because being a traitor is, I think, probably one of your best accomplishments, in my opinion. All right, well, that's the end of the episode. Love you, BBs. Thank you for listening. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hurrdat Media. If you want to listen to this show or any other episode, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Hurrdat Media's YouTube channel to watch my full-length video podcast episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at I Take Bravo Very Seriously and at The Bravo Investigator. You can follow me on TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. Head to buymeacoffee.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously to buy me a coffee. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously for 4 extra mini episodes a month, early episodes, ad-free, Q&A, and exclusive access to bonus content. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.